Welcome back to Beyond Sunday, the official St. Mary's podcast. I'm Stephen Thompson.
And I'm Father Martin Castaneda.
And we are right in the middle of the season of Lent.
Right. What a journey this has been.
Yeah. So, almost a year now, we went to a conference, and out of that conference had this desire to take our people beyond Sunday.
Yeah.
And it kind of started with this idea of maybe we can put together a reflection book where people could look at the upcoming Sunday readings and spend the first day just going through the first reading, the next day going through the Psalms, and then the third, the second reading officially, the Gospel, and then a day of just reflection. And that had a book similar to this one here. And then we did one in the fall, and there was one in Christmas, but we're not talking about that one. And then we really wanted to make sure we had something to lead our people through the season that was unique to us. And so the origins of this, I've been doing full-time ministry for 15 years, and I just one day preached to myself in a parking lot on my phone of every Lenten theme that I have heard and preached on in 15 years, and then took those themes, the preachings, and kind of organized them, and through that came basically 6 different themes, and from there assign those to individual weeks throughout the season, and then from there, scriptures that meet those themes, and then just a reflection and questions, and out came this book, The Journey in the Desert.
Right. And so the theme was intentional because as we started the Jubilee year, it was all about the journey and the journey that we are currently on, right? And the journey that we're on asked us to do an internal movement for Lent, right? Not so much working on the exterior, but work on the interior and working through our dark situations, our dark times, and going through it. And so this book was really, really good. Stephen did a really good job about entering into the internal movement and how we internally move. If you come to our church here, you'll see that we created a path starting from the narthex all the way to the altar. And every week there's footsteps on that path.
Leading us on the journey.
Leading us on the journey, going forth in our journey. And how do we fall off the path, right? And so how have you been doing this Lenten season?
Yeah, I mean, even a few weeks before Lent started, I just really felt that I have had almost a renewal of the presence of the Lord. Not that necessarily I felt like I was in a season of desolation before that, but God has just truly just been present. And I have almost found this renewed zeal to where, I'm a preacher, and I like to preach and to write out my ideas and talk out my ideas and whatever. And so much of this has just been coming out. And I think a lot of it started in this producing the book and the themes that we've been going through. And so I think he's just been so present. And I've done a few things. Like I turned my phone to black and white. And just it created something ugly that I look at every day, and it has made me a little bit uncomfortable. One of the things I've been playing with is the idea that the phone being an extension of our body, that if we do some type of mortification to our phone or our technology, it's a type of like a bodily mortification. Like sometimes people used to put a little pebble in their shoe so that every step they take, it'd be a constant reminder. Well, as my phone is ugly and I look at it, it's like that's a constant reminder this is a different time, a time of reflection, a time of inward change, and a time of just a little bit of discomfort. But with that visual stimulus of black and white, when I put my car in reverse and my little screen comes up, my reverse camera, the colors on that seem so much more vivid. I walked into a room, and a room I go into all the time, and I felt like my senses of smell were much more alive. And so I'm thinking, what is this saying that I have diminished a particular maybe sense in a way that my other senses have come more alive? And anything that I always think is true for my body has got to be true then for the soul too. That we are, together, body, soul composite. And so I've always played with that idea. And so in those little ways, God speaks to me. And I've been working on a project of obviously prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. And what does that look like outside of just the tradition of what people automatically think that is?
Right.
And it's a project that maybe we journey into next year, taking things into Lent, but of ways that are very unique that maybe people don't think about, of fasting, and then almsgiving, like journeying into your closet, looking at your wardrobe. Does this even fit me anymore? Have I worn this in 6 months? Will I wear it in 6 months? Get rid of it and give it away. And like my closet's kind of got a little emptier, and there's many of those journeys that I've been kind of doing a little bit at a time. Doing the same thing with apps on the phone, like praying, like, is this app, is it just by itself, is it good? Is it leading to a deeper goodness in my own life?
Right.
And Lord, do you want me to have this? And then get rid of it.
Yeah.
And purging yourselves from it. So these are some things that I've just kind of done that I'm working through. That has been a real decluttering too. Because again, the whole call of John the Baptist, let me decrease so that you can increase. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. And so that's what I really loved about this, is because you really have challenged us in this book. So I hunger and thirst for righteousness. And so for me, it was about, how do I dive into, I hunger and thirst for righteousness? What do I hunger and thirst for? Doing God's will here on earth, right? And making sure that I am right with God, but not just myself, my family, my friends are right with God. And I love the fact that we, as the staff, has chosen Sister Josephine Garrett's book, Wilderness Within, and she talks about her journey in Lenten time, and how she's fallen off the path multiple times, but what God has taught her is to dust herself off and get back on that path, right? Start again.
Sure.
And so sometimes we do that, we fall off of it. So I hunger and thirst for righteousness. And then this week's title was
Seeing Christ in Others and the Marginalized.
Seeing Christ in the Marginalized, right? And so this whole week, this whole second week was all about seeing Christ in the marginalized, and how I have to step outside myself and look at my brothers and sisters in Christ, look at the homeless, look at the people in need, the forgotten, and how do they need God as well? How do they need Christ?
Which
and
is
how can we be
tough,
right?
I mean, you and I both are in a similar situation where we have an elderly member that we care for,
Right.
And that's not always the easiest thing, but I think that's a way in which we particularly have to serve someone who maybe could be forgotten about. I was in the gas station the other day and just people watching, and it hit me that they're no different than me as a beloved child of God.
That's right.
Like I see them. How does God see them?
Right.
And it's just, and whenever I'm praying with our teenagers, just because luckily we're blessed to be able to give them food on Sunday nights, and we pray for that food, but I always intentionally stop and pray for those who are going to go without clothing, shelter, or food tonight. And if we encounter someone in need and we can be Christ's hands, feet, and face, that we respond to that call.
So that was last week. This week is the cross and suffering, right? And so how are we accepting our cross, and how are we suffering, right?
What does that look like?
Right, what does it look like?
Yeah.
And so I'm still working on that, right?
Oh,
so,
always.
Right, so we have our crosses. Everybody's crosses are different. And how do we offer redemptive suffering, right? How do we offer that suffering, that sacrifice that we're called to today for the good of somebody else?
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing. A lot of people suffer for their own sake. They're, oh, woe is me,
Sure.
blah, blah. But instead, turn that suffering into something good.
Right.
God, I don't know why this is happening to me. I don't understand where this comes from. Just like Job, right? But I'm sure you're going to do something great with it. I offer this suffering for XYZ person. And
that's the teaching of the church that people maybe don't always understand. They want to, and I guess it was maybe in our tradition, I guess people, older generations would hear it from the nuns in Catholic school, offer it up.
Yeah.
Offer up your sufferings.
Right.
And I think that's kind of been lost in current culture, in that we think that all suffering is bad and we should be avoided at all costs.
Right.
But like Christ says, like, you will pick up your cross and come after me. Like, you will have these crosses. We talked about in our previous episode about Mary, that she said yes to God, and she just had a cross after a cross after a cross. And that's an example of being blessed and holy. It should challenge us as Christians of, like, what do we do when we face crosses and suffering? And do we embrace them and unite ourselves to Christ, unite our sufferings to His? And that idea of redemptive suffering, that it can be offered for someone else, a soul in purgatory, someone you don't know, a loved one, a family member, like that it's a part of the redemptive act that we can include. We have a role in redemption in that.
It's absolutely beautiful. That's right.
So don't let any suffering go to waste.
Yeah, so I can't wait for the following week to come up, next week to come up in our journey book.
As we continue to journey. And that one's nice because it's the fourth one. It's a little bit lighter. You get to wear rose on investments.
Joyful.
And so joyful, that's right. So that next one is on the joy of anticipation, renewed hope in the journey.
Yeah.
So that's what we'll journey on the next time.
Awesome.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us on Beyond Sunday. Until next time.
God bless.
Be blessed.